Thank you for joining me. My name is Jill Bates, and today I would like to speak with you about the importance of emotional intelligence in leadership. When asked to describe what people like most in a leader, common terms used are collaborative, self-aware, resilient, good communicator, agile, courageous, gratuitous, and respectful, just to name a few. These terms are characteristics of an emotionally intelligent leader. Having leaders who not only understand the importance of emotional intelligence, but continuously use the values of EI in their daily interactions are far more likely to have teams who not only respect and like them, but will also continue to work for them. This presentation is going to focus on resonant and dissonant leadership styles. It's important to understand what each style represents and how both styles can be important. To start, we will look at resonant leadership. Resonant leaders connect with others during good times and bad. They show compassion for others and deliver communication the way they would want to hear it if they were in their employees' shoes. They are upbeat, have positive attitudes, don't look at hierarchy as a way to lead, but instead have more of a one-team approach. Resonant leaders are empathetic and take time to really get to know their team, not only for what they can bring to the job, but for who they are as people, what drives them, their likes, dislikes, and dreams for the future. This type of leadership leaves people feeling understood and cared for. There are some things you can start doing today that can make you a more emotionally intelligent resonant leader. Start by taking time to connect with your employees, understanding what they need to do their work and from you as a leader. This is not something that should be done only when you have time. This should be a priority. Leaders should put time in their calendars to sit down with team members to purposely connect. Recognizing talents in others should not feel intimidating or as though someone is competing for your position. Instead, a good leader will help others develop those talents. Another easy place to start is balancing criticism with positive reinforcement. It's easy to remember to go to someone when actions or behaviors need to be corrected, but people need positive reinforcement as well. People want to be acknowledged for the good work they are doing and feel as though they are being recognized, seen, and heard. This brings value to the workplace, which equals contentment and happiness. When we talk about dissonant leadership, it can bring up some unpleasant emotions. Dissonant leadership brings unbalance to the workplace. A survey of U.S. workers found that 42% reported incidences of yelling and other kinds of abuse in the workplace. This is unacceptable. When being yelled at, your body will naturally have a flight or fight response. There are 3 stages to the flight or fight response. The first is the alarm stage. During this stage, the central nervous system is ramped up, preparing your body to fight or flee. The resistance stage, the body attempts to normalize and recover from the initial elevated flight or fight response. The exhaustion stage is when the first 2 stages occur repeatedly over time. This can cause the body to feel exhausted and begin to break down. Why would someone want to stay with a leader or organization that does not value them? When employees don't feel valued or cared for, or worse yet, broken down, they won't be motivated to work, or even worse, won't be motivated to stay. Dissonant leaders don't always mean to be disconnected or mean, but their lack of emotional intelligence gives that impression of them. This type of leadership can vary. A pace setter has high standards not only for their own performance, but for others as well. Leaders become obsessive about goals and benchmarks, and if they feel there are individuals not living up to the task, they aren't afraid to point them out, demand more, and at times push them aside and quote-unquote rescue them, meaning the leaders do the job themselves. They tend to expect others to know what they are expected to do and offer little, if any, guidance. This can lead to employees feeling unvalued, not trusted to get the job done themselves, not good enough, have anxiety, and as if they don't matter as employees or people. Leading by demand can create fear and disconnect within an organization. When employees are told what to do, it can make them wonder what value they bring. Abusive interactions instill fear. When employees live in constant fear, the relationship between leader and direct reports will continue to distance itself, making leaders even less aware of what is actually happening within their own area. A clueless leader may mean well, but often misses the mark. Sometimes it is because employees have been made to feel uncomfortable approaching the leader with what's going on. Other times, a leader may be overwhelmingly upbeat and positive, but staff is not in a position to receive that kind of energy. Clueless leaders lack the ability to read the room. Not only is this detrimental for the immediate department, but if the leader is continuously telling the higher-ups of the organization that everything is going well and the department is excelling, they are creating a smokescreen to what is actually happening. Even when directly asked, a self-absorbed leader may put a spin on it, making the leader look good by belittling or undermining the work being done by employees. Resident leaders take the time to get to know their staff and focus on relationships, and for the most part, have positive outcomes. Evidence-based research highlights the positive effects of resident leadership with employee engagement, but that does not mean there is not room for dissonant styles of leadership when done the right way. Take, for example, an urgent situation arises, such as a financial crisis, a market shift, or a scenario in which a new leader is taking the place of another that was not a good fit for the team or organization. A dissonant leader will step up and take charge. This can reassure teams that they can trust their leader to take charge and get them back on track when needed. There is not always time for leaders to sit down with the team, to hear their thoughts, or discuss a detailed action plan. They need a leader that knows them well enough to make a decision that will be most beneficial for them as a team. So although resident leadership has many strengths and may be impactful default style under most conditions, there are times when dissonant leadership can be both an appropriate and even preferred way to tackle specific challenges. Again, dissonant leadership styles may often have a negative connotation. We have learned that doesn't mean it's all bad. Leaders can use a dissonant style of leadership and still be a successful leader. You just have to know how to use it. For example, properly using pace setting can be a leader who strives to learn new approaches to improve performance, not only for themselves, but for the team they lead. When leading by demand incorporates emotional intelligence, it can be beneficial. Instead of being threatening or yelling, when leaders use self-control and use their energy to influence staff to work together to get the job done, leaders can still set high demands, but bring the team together to work towards a goal or seize an opportunity. Having a large repertoire of emotional intelligence strengths can make a leader more effective because it means that leader is flexible enough to handle the wide-ranging demands of leading a team. The best leaders are able to use the right approach in the right moment and flip from one to another as needed. Here is an example of 4 leadership styles and how and when they can be helpful. A visionary takes time to speak to each individual to gain their perspective. Empathy is very important to a visionary. There may be a goal in place, but a visionary inspires and encourages the team to develop a plan for getting there. Coaching doesn't look at short-term concerns, but instead focuses on a bigger picture. A coach gets to know staff on a grander scale, learning their life goals and dreams. Coaches have a genuine interest in people, build trust, and see people as more than a tool to get a job done. Affiliative leaders bring harmony by connecting people. Affiliative leaders focus on the emotional needs of their staff versus work goals. They care about them as people. Democratic leaders, although they may not be able to change an outcome, still value the input of others. People want to feel valued and heard, and a democratic leader provides that. The best leaders don't always take charge. Instead, they recognize when they need to simply listen. Becoming a more resonant leader, a leader that is more in touch with their team, focuses on 5 discoveries. The 5 discoveries focus on self-directed learning to become a more emotionally intelligent leader. To start, ask yourself, who do I want to be? What is your ideal self? Think of those that have inspired you and who you admire. What qualities do they have that you can work on? The next question to ask is, who am I? To get the most accurate answers will take time and reflection. Write down both your strengths and weaknesses and be honest with yourself. The third is looking at those strengths and finding ways to build on them while reducing some of your gaps. Fourth, experiment. You won't find the ideal plan right away or change behaviors overnight. It takes trial and error and time. Be patient and don't be afraid to try new things. Fifth, develop trusting relationships. Just like everyone else, leaders need people they can depend on to provide honest feedback. We need to hear both the good and bad to make the changes we want to see in ourselves. Being an emotionally intelligent leader and wanting to continuously improve yourself is great, but as a leader, you also need to be aware of the emotional intelligence of your team. A group of intelligent individuals is wonderful, but if they don't know how to work together, it may be harder to reach the overall goals. Groups have moods and needs, and they act collectively. Emotions are contagious, both negative and positive. Teams that are aware of the impact their actions and moods can have on a team exhibit emotional intelligence and have more self-awareness. At the team level, social awareness, especially empathy, is the foundation that enables a team to build and maintain effective relationships with the rest of the organization. Teams need to learn how to hold each other accountable and practice being positive. Leaders need to focus on reality and the ideal vision. Before we can move towards the vision, we need to be honest about the realities we are facing. These are several obstacles that commonly get in the way of creating the ideal vision. Leaders who don't listen. Leaders not only need to be open to feedback, they need to seek out honest feedback. Create a safe environment for others to provide their honest opinions and ideas for change. Dissonant leaders can create a toxic organization because employees become disengaged, knowing that what they say doesn't matter. Organizations overall can also be toxic when certain employees are unhappy. Emotions are contagious, and it's important to recognize that. If a team member becomes toxic, it can be beneficial to sit down to ask them what makes them feel this way. Getting to the root of the problem sooner rather than later can make a big difference in team dynamic. But even the most toxic organizations can change if they want to. Leaders need to work on their own emotional intelligence as well as others' emotions and the emotional reality of the organization. When people lose their passion or feel unvalued, they lose the motivation to work. Organizations need to start with a dynamic inquiry to discover the emotional reality. What's really going on and where do they want to be? Dynamic inquiry includes focused conversations that include open-ended questions that encourage momentum. To make the change you want to see, leaders and teams need to focus on an ideal vision for the organization that is in sync with their individual hopes and dreams. Moving towards the ideal vision is more than everyone being aligned. Instead, it's about attunement, motivating enthusiasm to be part of the change and finding ways of working together to decide what they care about, what they want to do, and how they are going to do it. Although teamwork is key, leaders need to remember they are the ones the team looks to for guidance. Leaders need to consistently demonstrate the behaviors they want to see. Leaders and teams are most successful when resonant leaders know when to be collaborative and when to be visionary, when to listen and when to command. They nurture relationships, step in when needed to address issues before they become bigger issues, inspire others, and ensure all people feel equally valued as part of a team by encouraging feedback from all and providing opportunities equally. Good leaders focus on their people. Caring for others will almost always mean more to them than achieving a goal. Thank you for your time.